I love my dragons. What's up, YouTube? So today I actually want to talk about why I love my bearded dragons. What do I like about bearded dragons? Why do I have bearded dragons? Everyone has different reasons. Obviously, some people think there are better reptiles. There might be better reptiles than bearded dragons out there. Some people think bearded dragons are hard to keep. Some people think they're easy to keep. Really, everyone has different opinions, but in this video, I just want to talk about why I like my bearded dragons, why I enjoy having bearded dragons, and why I've kept bearded dragons for 12 years. So one of the reasons I like having bearded dragons is because I think they all have different personalities, and you can't just have one because there's so many different types of bearded dragons as far as colors, as far as genetic combinations. So with the bearded dragons, when you buy one, it's going to have a different personality than the next one you buy, or maybe it's going to have the same personality. You really never know. But in my opinion, in my experience, all of the bearded dragons that I've ever had have always had different personalities. For example, let me grab one right now. So this is my girl Rita. So in one of my videos that I did previously, she actually jumped from her little ledge there to the glass trying to get to me because she actually enjoys seeing me. I've had her since she was little. She's been raised by me. She is, I think she's about she's about 2 years old. She'll be 2 years old. No, actually, she'll be 3 years old in May. So she's about 3. She's not a very big girl. Not because I don't feed her. She eats very well. She just never actually puts on weight. She doesn't ever get longer. What's up? So she's actually a very short bearded dragon. She's not one of those longer bearded dragons. Actually, the longest bearded dragon I've ever had was about 23 inches. There used to be German giants. I've never owned a German giant. And for those people that go around saying, oh, my dragon's a German giant, they don't exist anymore. They've been obliterated. People bred them out of existence. That's just what happened with German giants. Your bearded dragon is not a German giant. German giants were like 30 inches long. Some of them even longer than that, but they average around 30 inches, and they average around 700 to 800 grams. So your dragon's most definitely not a German giant. But Rita, she's a small girl. She's not very huge. She's about 360, 70 grams. I would say she's about 18 or 19 inches. She's not very long either. You can see by looking at her, she's actually a lot more round than she is slender. She's just that type of bearded dragon. Every one of them looks differently. They all grow differently. So that's one of the reasons why I like bearded dragons, is because they're all different. None of them are going to be exactly the same from each other. Even siblings, they're all going to be different. Even parent to offspring, they're going to be different. So they're all going to be different regardless of if they're related or not. The same color, they're all going to be different. So even if you breed them, even if you hand raise them, they're all going to be different, which is why I love bearded dragons. Another reason I love bearded dragon is because of what you can create. Obviously, there's other reptiles out there that you can create crazy things as well, like ball pythons. There's so many things you can create with ball pythons. But with bearded dragons, you have white dragons, you have dark red dragons, you have yellow dragons, orange dragons. I have some cherry reds, I have some dark reds, I have some red oranges. Then there's smooth dragons. Why are you trying to bite me? Okay, it's bedtime, and he's already like, dude, put me back. I need to go to sleep. Yeah, I recorded this video a little later than I wanted to, but he is a Hypo-Wero. You guys have seen him in my previous videos. He is trying really hard to bite me because he wants to go back in his enclosure. You see, they all have different personalities. Rita didn't even care. But this guy, he's being real picky, and he's trying to bite me, you little ass. So this is Casper. Casper is my white Hypo-Wero, and he's being a complete turd. But this is him. You can see how white he is. I know sometimes I usually show him off in my light box, but just for the purposes of this video, to show that I actually care and I actually handle my bearded dragons, this is Casper. He is being a little 2D today, but most of the time he's usually pretty good. I don't know why he's trying to bite me. Hey man, it's not that bad. It's not that serious. So it's hard to have favorites, but sometimes you do have favorites. This girl here is a Hypotrans leatherback Dunner. And she is one of my favorites. Her name is Iris. And the reason her name is Iris, I don't know if the camera's going to pick this up, but she actually has gray eyes. So I figured if it's going to be a name, it has to be about her eyes. So I just called her Iris. So she is a Hypo trans leatherback dunner. She is an orange hypo trans leatherback dunner. She is actually been paired to Casper. So Casper is a hypo Wero. I'm hoping to make some het Weros. She has never tried to bite me. Casper just tried to bite me. I don't know. They all have different personalities, like I keep saying. But this girl here, her name is Iris, like I said, and she is super docile. She has never tried to hiss at me, never tried to bite at me. Even when I try to hand feed her, she never even tries to go for my hand. I always have to put the bugs down before she even tries to eat them out of my hand. She is a little bit dirty. She ran through poop not that long ago. So that's another reason why I love bearded dragons, is because all the crazy things that you can create by breeding bearded dragons. Another reason I love bearded dragons is because look how tiny they are. Look how small this guy is. And you see how big they get? So if you get a baby bearded dragon, you get to watch it grow up. You get to experience all of the stages of that bearded dragon, from a little bit bigger than this, because this guy's about, he's about 4 weeks old. So he would actually be sold around 8 weeks. So he'll be about, I would say about twice this size before I sell him. But you get to experience them from small baby bearded dragons all the way to adulthood. You get to feed them what you want to feed them. You get to handle them the way you want to handle them. So you get to technically create your own personality of a bearded dragon. And obviously not every time does it come out the same, because they do have their own personality. So if they are just stubborn and they just become what they want to become, then you get stuck with that as well. But I've had baby bearded dragons and I've raised them up to adulthood. Now, I have had times when I have bought adult dragons and they were not as good as what I thought they would be. And the previous owner would tell me, oh, it's just new environment. And I'm like, I've never had that happen with an adult bearded dragon. Usually, new environment doesn't change their personality. It might, but usually it doesn't. So from my experience, if you start off with this size of bearded dragon, obviously a little bit bigger, like I mentioned, because it'll be about 8 weeks old, then you will actually get to experience everything, and you will actually be able to create that personality that you want to have. And like I said, they can be stubborn. So sometimes you have to really put in the work to get that personality that you want. Do you want a bearded dragon that is handleable? Do you want a bearded dragon that goes around with you, goes to the store with you, you able to leave it in your living room and let it run around? That's going to take time. It's not going to start off like that. So you actually have to work it and make sure that you are able to raise that bearded dragon. So that's another reason why I love bearded dragons. You're able to raise them up the way you want to raise them up, and you're able to do things with your bearded dragon that other people can't do with theirs. And I know some people will think this is corny, but technically you're taming your bearded dragon. You're taming your dragon. You're training your dragon. This is how you train your dragon. You start off with this little baby right here, and you create that personality that you want. So another reason why I enjoy having bearded dragons, and another reason why I love having bearded dragons, is because while they do take up quite a bit of space, they don't take up as much space as some other reptiles out there. For example, I have some Ackie monitors. So a bearded dragon needs a 4 foot wide enclosure, and it'll be about 2 feet deep. Now, I've said this before, but I usually keep it at 18 inches tall to 24 inches tall. You don't need anything taller, and you don't want anything shorter, because either the UVB won't work if it's taller, or it's going to harm them if it's too short. And obviously, you can't really regulate temperatures that well if your enclosure is too short as well. So they don't require a lot of space. My Ackie monitors require a 6 foot wide enclosure. Even at this point, they're real small, but even eventually I'll have to go 3 foot deep because they require a lot of substrate. But bearded dragons don't require all of that. So you can go with a 4 foot wide enclosure, 2 feet deep, 18 inches tall or 24 inches tall or somewhere in between. But they don't require a lot of space. And also, like I mentioned, you can let them roam your house, and then they really don't require a lot of space. So I've actually seen, and I've heard of people in the past where they'll have them in like I wouldn't say a 40 gallon is sufficient, but 3 foot wide, 2 feet deep, and 18 inches tall is the smallest enclosure that I would go. And then if you keep them in an enclosure that size, as long as you allow them to go out and experience the rest of their home, because they live in your home, so that means that it's their home as well. If they get to enjoy the rest of their home, then they won't care about that 3 foot by 2 foot by 18 inch enclosure. So it's adequate enough for their size and their health, but again, you're giving them the enrichment they need by letting them roam your house. So that's another reason why I love bearded dragons, is because they don't require a lot of space, and they're still enjoyable, and they're still fun to watch and have. They're fun to watch and have. So the only downside to having bearded dragons is bugs. So bearded dragons, when they are small, like that baby I showed you, they eat a crap ton of bugs. As they get older, and all those bearded dragons that I showed you, Casper, Rita, Iris, they don't eat that many bugs. I feed them bugs maybe 2 or 3 times a week, and I usually feed them 5 to 10 bugs at a time. And that's all. Greens daily, bugs 2 or 3 times a week. When they're babies, they're eating 3 or 2 times a day, and they're eating 5 to 10 bugs, maybe 15 bugs if they're really indulging, or if maybe you're feeding smaller bugs than they're supposed to have. But that's the only downfall, is that when they're small, they're eating a crap ton. You're having to buy maybe 100 roaches or 100 crickets every week, versus as an adult, I'm barely having to buy 50 bugs a month per bearded dragon. That's obviously, I have many, so I'm having to buy a lot of them, but per bearded dragon, I'm barely having to buy 50 bugs a month. So at the end of the day, you're going to be spending a lot of money at the beginning to get them to that size where they don't actually need that much money to maintain. So obviously greens are stupid cheap. I buy, you can, obviously if you grow your greens, it's even cheaper, but I buy bags of greens, and I buy about a bag a week, and I go through a bag a week of greens. I do, but it's usually a big bag. It's probably like a bag this big, and every day they're getting greens. Will they eat the greens? That's really up to them. But for the most part, I feed them greens first, and then I feed them the bugs. But for the adults, I'm not having to spend a whole lot of money. But like I said, the only downfall to bearded dragons is that you're going to be spending a lot of money to grow them to adulthood before you start saving money in the long run. My only tip to you, if you want a bearded dragon, is get a bearded dragon from a reputable breeder and get an enclosure that is suitable for an adult bearded dragon. Do not cheap out on that enclosure. Don't cheap out and get a little 20-gallon because it's a baby. That baby is going to grow. Like I said, it's eating a crap ton of bugs. It's going to happen very quickly. By the time that baby is 2 months, 3 months older than you got it, you're going to be needing a 40-gallon. By the time that baby, or that juvenile at that point, is 3 or 4 months older than that point when you had to upgrade it, you're going to be with an adult. That 40 gallons is going to feel tiny. You're going to need a bigger enclosure. You can go with like a 75 if you're buying fish tanks, but if you're buying PVC enclosures or wooden enclosures, I would, again, 36 inches wide, 24 inches deep, 18 inches tall to be the smallest or the minimum size that you can get. And the biggest or the recommended size would be a 4 foot wide, 2 feet deep, 2 feet tall, or 18 inches tall, or somewhere in between. It really just depends on you. 18 inches is the smallest I would go as far as height. Enough about that. Those are the reasons why I love bearded dragons. There's a whole lot more reasons, but if I kept talking about them, we'd be here all day. But those are the main points. They have different personalities. You can create wild things. You can buy wild things. There's a chance for you to be able to buy $3,000 bearded dragons. There's a chance for you to be able to buy $50 bearded dragons. There is a reason for the price difference, but really it's up to you. What is your price range? What can you find in that price range that is crazy looking, that will entertain you, that you won't mind looking at every day? Because yes, you're going to be keeping this animal every day of their lives for 15 years, because that's about how long they live. Some of them will live less, some of them will live more, but for the most part, 15 years is average. So be ready to have a bearded dragon for a very long time. Be ready to be buying bugs for a very long time. The first year of owning a bearded dragon is the most expensive year because of the enclosure, because of buying the dragon, and because all of the bugs that they will eat that first year. After that, smooth sailing. You're never going to have to worry about all of that again unless you buy another baby bearded dragon, which of course I've done it like 30 times. So I have never been able to recoup from buying hundreds of bugs every month. But for the most part, I love my bearded dragons, and I'm sure you will too if you decide to get one day. And if you already own one, I'm sure you love your bearded dragon. Now, if you got this far into the video, I appreciate it. Please like, share, and subscribe. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss anything that I put out in the future. Peace.